Aquarius is an outstanding dive site for sea life. That said, it will forever be remembered by us as the place Leslie broke her ankle. It wasn't diving related, but still serves as a cautionary tale about the potential hazards of crossing coral debris piles, even for the most experienced explorers. We still love the site, though. It was the first site she dove after healing, and we've been back regularly since. We haven't really been able to find out much background on the naming of this dive site, but it starts with aqua, and that's good enough for us. If you happen to know, please point us in a direction to research using the comments section below. But before we get into the water, there's a lot to enjoy on land. Aquarius has a decent amount of sand, by Bonaire standards, and a number of sitting areas have been lined with piled-up rocks to provide a little protection from the wind. They are great for a surface interval or a sunset picnic. The bushes here provide a bit more of a windbreak, but the rocky floor seems a bit more conducive to chairs rather than a blanket. Note that all those rocks provide lizards shelter from the sun, so don't be surprised if one pops out, although they generally run away when people get close. There's a variety of vegetation around, including a nice stretch of mangroves along the coast, some pretty yellow flowers being protected by fairly ominous thorny branches, and wind-swept bushes that perfectly illustrate the strong and pervasive trade winds over the island. As far as animals go, you can expect to see gulls, crabs, or maybe a local dog out for some exercise with its owner. And even though we haven't seen donkeys here, there is evidence they stop by. The long shallows make this a great spot for snorkeling. Snorkelers can easily watch hunting teams search the shallow seabed for food, or perhaps a solitary ocean surgeonfish doing the same. Of course there are flounder, sharp-nosed puffers, smooth trunkfish, rosy razorfish, white-spotted filefish, and perhaps a young French angelfish. If you enjoy coral, Aquarius has snorkelers covered as well, with large fields of gorgonians, a nice bed of staghorn coral, and some pretty interesting coral heads. Unfortunately, as 2023 has progressed, so has the advancement of stony coral tissue loss disease. As of this video, it's made its way well beyond Aquarius, all the way down to Margate Bay, which is now in orange status as well. While the isolated pockets are certainly worrisome, the vast majority of the reef appears to be thriving, so far. That said, we've included a link below to Stanapa's Marine Park webpage for the latest updates and decontamination recommendations. And now, strap yourselves in for a ton of first-time capture previews. We saw a deep reef scorpionfish, an arrow shrimp, a jewel urchin, a red glasshair chiton, lots of lynx phidiana, a hemipolygona, and an Atlantic longarm octopus. As usual, we'll show longer clips later, but if you want to learn more about the uncommon animals shown here, check out the video description below for links to additional information about each one. Finally, here's a quick subscription appeal. If you like what these two find and capture for these videos, consider subscribing to the TropicLens channel. Thanks! Smiley faces. Aquarius is just across from the first salt pan on Bonaire's southwestern leeward coast. Getting there is super easy. Starting from the airport, head west on EEG Boulevard as it slowly curves south. Stay on that for just over 3 miles. It's just after Alice in Wonderland, so when you see those yellow site markers, slow down. There's a driveway just before the first Aquarius yellow dive site marker, and another one just after it. Both lead to the same parking area along the coast, and both have fairly easy sandy entrances. That said, the second one has yellow rocks highlighting the entry, so we'll discuss that one here. When you pass the first yellow Aquarius dive site marker, take the next right. The driveway crosses a small gully where mangroves grow, and can be muddy and/or filled with water in the rainy season. Before we review the parking, here's a pro tip. Maps.me is an excellent free offline GPS map. Notice we're getting real-time driving directions to Aquarius while in airplane mode. There should be plenty of parking, so consider avoiding the spot directly in front of the dive entry, as that not only makes it hard for others to see where the entry is, but also forces divers off the worn path and over larger rocks with heavy gear. The ground rises from the mangroves and forms a small berm before descending to the shoreline, so your vehicle will most likely be at some sort of angle no matter which way you park. Be careful when standing up tanks to set up your gear. And since we're talking about gear, there are no amenities here, so the only practical place to set up is at home or your vehicle. If you notice something wrong with your gear at the last minute, there are 3 dive shops within 2 miles of Aquarius that may be able to help with a quick fix or offer a rental to get you back into the water quickly. The entry point on the southern end of the parking lot is highlighted by a couple of yellow entry markers. It's a short walk over rocks and coral rubble until you reach the sand, at which point the entrance is easy. Once in the water, a 5-minute swim will put you on the main reef. It starts off with rock and coral rubble toward the shore, but then turns to almost all sand for about 100 feet or so. For the next few hundred feet, soft and hard coral heads get more numerous as you near the drop-off. There is no dive site mooring buoy here, at least there wasn't when we visited, and observed boat traffic was well out over the reef. That said, it's always good practice to keep your ears open and be aware of your surroundings whenever near the surface. Navigation at sites like Aquarius may seem challenging given the long flat shallows and the lack of man-made artifacts like a mooring buoy. That said, there are a number of unique rock, coral, and sponge configurations that you can use as markers to turn toward shore. This 24-inch high rope sponge was sitting in 15 feet of water in front of the entrance. Now, the terrain is flat there, so it is possible to be in 15 feet of water further toward the reef, or to the right or left of it, and pass by, especially at night. But it was something we took note of. Coral rubble piles aren't that unique, and may shift, change, or break up over time. But this one had some blade fire coral popping out. So that was a good navigational marker for our dive as well. We also saw these tall sea plumes and sea rods flanked by tube sponges at 35 feet. Here they are from the reef side. The point is, pick something, or a couple of things that stand out to you, take note of their location and depth, and you should have no problem navigating the return swim back to the entrance. If all else fails, the reef lies at 260 degrees west, which means the compass heading back to shore is 80 degrees east. With average to good visibility, you can see the bottom of the reef from the drop-off. But if you're game to swim down there, there is plenty to enjoy. Here's what you might see on the way down. We have experienced mild currents at Aquarius, but they generally aren't too bad. There were so many animal highlights here, we made a separate video with all the extra night diving clips. You can check that out after this one, but let's jump right into just some of what we saw. This round thing that looks like a donut is actually an elegant anemone. We saw this just after sunset, so it wasn't quite awake yet. We've seen seahorses at multiple dive sites over the years, but this orange one really stands out. It changes locations a bit, but is just gorgeous to see in person. Actually, while Leslie took her turn with the seahorse, I enjoyed the company of 9 squid. At first, they kept their distance, but then they came in for a closer look. We also saw the biggest lettuce slug we've ever seen, a chain moray eel, and who doesn't think juvenile smooth trunkfish are kind of cute? As always, the shallows continue to produce phenomenal animal encounters. Leslie spotted an octopus out hunting one time, and then we saw another taking refuge from the surge against a rock. Just to the south of the entrance are quite a few large rock formations with blade fire coral on top that breach the surface in low tide. There's also a couple of elkhorn corals in there. The area is fun to explore, but be careful when the surge picks up. Make sure to check under rocks and inside the blade fire corals, as you may just find a golden tail moray eel or two. And don't forget to look up, we've seen needlefish lurking around the surface. While all that was great, perhaps the coolest thing we saw was about a dozen spot-winged comb jellies. The last time we saw those was 2021, so we literally spent 20 minutes floating, drifting, watching, shooting, and watching some more. Sea life is amazing. We're switching up the sea life section this time to highlight the night dives because they were just so amazing. And we'll start with a record number of first-time captures. The first was this deep reef scorpionfish hiding in the middle of some blade fire coral. The second was this arrow shrimp, which we initially caught swimming in the water column, but ultimately landed on a gorgonian. Our third first-time capture was a lucky spot at the bottom of a hole in the coral. This white, black, and pink beauty is called a jewel urchin. Coming in at number 4 is a red glass hair chiton. We usually only see chitons near the shoreline, so this one at 30 feet was quite surprising, and so colorful. The next one was an easy spot, but hard to identify. We couldn't find a common name for it in any of the ID books, so we'll share its more formal genus name. This intricate shell belongs to a sea snail called a hemipolygona. We're going to stop at 6 first-time captures, but there were others. If you want to see more, check out our Aquarius at Night video. The shy animal hiding here in the sandy shallows, probing the bottom with its tentacle, is an Atlantic longarm octopus. Okay, one more, but that's it. We saw these nudibranchs on every night dive in the shallows. They are lynx phidiana and were all less than 1 inch in length. Anyway, it isn't all rare sea life at Aquarius. We saw more common animals as well. So here's a taste of what you're more likely to see, which is still kind of awesome. The day diving was spectacular as well, with many uncommon animals and behaviors. We see slender filefish and sea rods once in a while, but this juvenile fringe filefish is pretty rare. We also caught glimpses of a juvenile golden coney that was playing hard to get. Okay, here's something cool. Check out how long this sharp-tailed eel is. We'll speed this clip up, but watch how far it burrows into the sand to track down some food. That's determination. We caught these two princess parrotfish doing something. They may have been mating, as the second pass seems to have left a cloud in the water column. And these box crabs in the sandy shallows were either fighting or going through some sort of ritual. Whatever it was, it didn't seem to end amicably. There is so much to see at Aquarius, we're placing it in our top 5 dive sites on Bonaire. We highly recommend diving here when you visit. Until then, here are a few more examples of what you might see. Enjoy!